Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. It's the 1st of September. It's Spring Day. Woohoo!
Spring Day.
That's right. I know. I love it. I love it. This is the time of year I wait for. Oh, I know we mustn't wish away time, right? Because we've only got a limited amount of it. But this is from now until like February is the best. This is the greatest time. The weather is good. People are happier. You got the festive season on the way. I know it's a lot to think about it in the 1st of September, but man, this is where it starts getting good. I love it. How are you, Pums?
I am fabulous. I am
Fabulous.
also very fabulous. Excited for spring. I am excited for spring.
I thought you said bubblous for a second there, but you said fabulous.
I'm never fabulous.
Yeah, I was going to say, wow, on a Wednesday night, you would have been doing well. Sure.
No, never fabulous. Also, it is the last week of school holidays. So I have young men here at my house.
How many of them?
3, including Kaneho.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Kaneho plus 3. Or Kaneho plus 2. So it's still too many to look after. And well, how old are these kids now?
No, but they don't have to be looked after. You know, they at that age, right? So 12, 13, 14.
You think they don't have to be looked after?
They just have to be fed. At this age, they just have to be fed.
And that is it's an ordeal because they eat a lot.
Listen, Gareth, you know, everybody's talking about the price of everything. Everybody's talking about how inflation. I actually, because I'm a planner, so planned all the meals, counted it all out, and planned it all, and then went for a shop. I actually had a tear in my eye at the till.
Oh my God.
I really did.
Wow. That's bad, huh?
It was eye-watering. And it's...
Well, I mean, I don't even know kind of how to figure that out because it's been things have gone up so much that what you used to be able to buy for 1,000 rand would last you so much longer. And it's hard to figure out because you can obviously compare prices today and yesterday and, you know, today and 10 years ago and all the rest of it. And I don't know that it helps you that much because, you know, they often say like, you know, 1 rand you earn right now is probably worth a lot more rands in the future. So it's very hard to kind of get your head around inflation, prices, petrol, increases or decreases in salary. And let's face it, no one's going to get a salary increase anytime soon. Is that right? Do you agree?
Nah.
It's not going to happen unless you work in the public sector because they're the unions are just obsessed with this. That's all they do.
Yeah, but even then, there was, I mean, so I have a cousin who works for SARS, and you remember there was a couple of months ago, they were on strike.
Yes.
And they were on strike because of, and we spoke about it, and they were like offices closing down across the country because of the strike.
Yes.
They've all got back to work. Get it. They were on strike. The commissioner said, listen, Treasury is not giving us more money. You're not getting a raise. So the strike just fizzled. So, yeah.
Damn, I was hoping they'd be permanently closed. You know how I feel about SARS, right?
Listen, I am currently so mad. You know, they had because a week and a half ago or something like that, they actually put out a statement about their record collections. And I'm so mad because I'm just like, in an economy like this, where everybody is agreeing about how tight things are, how the inflation is, all of that. And here you are coming out to say, over and above all that, we have had record collections. Nobody is sitting down and thinking, well, maybe the system is overtaxed, because that's what that means.
Well, I mean, the system can only handle so much tax. And and we in South Africa are taxed very heavily. You compare it to countries like the US and Northern Europe and places like that. We really have a very high tax rate, and of course we get very little in return for it. But you and I have often had this conversation about social welfare spending, and I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day about that, and his belief is that social welfare spending, because it's just cash in hand for so many people, has allowed a lot of people in this country who would have had nothing and had no opportunity and no ability to help themselves or to raise their own level of living. He says that actually the social grants have been a tremendous boon to the economy. And it's not always measurable, because a lot of these people have turned that social grant into, even though it's only 350, and now they're putting up to 600 and something. He says a lot of people put that into businesses, and they've started creating little micro enterprises all over the place. And he reckons it's been a very, very good thing, which is a point of view I hadn't thought of before. I must be honest.
When it started, Gareth, when it started all those many years ago, and we know the numbers, looking back at the time and looking at who's been pulled out of poverty and all of those things, and doubling the middle class and right? All of those many wonderful things. The truth of the matter is that all those gains have been squandered in the past couple of years.
Yes.
But also, there was no plan, and still today, there is no plan for people to get off the system. So bringing people onto the system, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a great idea. You've got to be able to have a social security net where it is needed, but it cannot be indefinitely. There has to be a plan to bring people out on the other side. It's absolute. Let me just look at the time. Okay, it's 10 minutes in. They said I can't swear in the early minutes of the show.
Oh, go ahead. I know what you're going to say.
No, but honestly, it is absolute bullshit that the president is willing to stand up in front of a crowd and say, we now have 20 million people.
No, they've turned it into something they boast about it. They're like, oh, this is so great that we've got all these people on social welfare. But they don't seem to understand. Look, I think the biggest problem here is that these politicians don't know how money is made. They don't actually understand how the economy works. So
even the people making money don't quite know how money is made.
Well,
even the people in jobs and
I don't know, Pums. I mean, you work in your own business. You know how hard you have to work for every rand, and how much harder it is now than it was maybe 10 years ago to get that rand in your pocket. It's tough. It's really, really tough. So I don't think they feel that. They boast about the record SARS tax intake. They boast about how many people are on social welfare. They seem to be boasting about exactly the wrong things. Like they are so proud of themselves for exactly the wrong things. And that's where I think there's a problem. There's a disconnect. Anyway.
Our finance minister has been
been
so stressed out. He's been so stressed out. He's been in hospital for a week. Did you know this?
Oh, no. Oh, shame. I feel sorry for him.
Shame, man. Shame, man. He's been so stressed out. So no one said anything until I saw the article about him coming out of hospital. I was like, do you think he went into hospital because he's so stressed out that there's sexual harassment?
Yeah. It's never about his mismanagement or his management of the economy. It's never about politics. These guys only get stressed out when it hits home, when it's like, sexual allegations and stuff like that. Now, we covered this in the show the other day. It's very embarrassing. Listen, I want to do something new this morning. We said we were going to open up the WhatsApp line, which I've just put up on the screen now, 071-783-6214. That's the WhatsApp line, which we've started from yesterday. Do you want to hear some of those messages?
Okay, yes.
All right, take a listen to this quickly. Here is the first one from someone we know. All right.
Hi, Gareth. Mash here. Glad to see the show went live on time today for once. And to all those people who are making fun of me for not washing my chicken, just wanted to let you guys know that my video is now at 1,000 views on TikTok. Just kidding, it's at 1,000,000. So thanks for that. And then you guys should also check out my new show with Simpiwe called Third Draft. And it is on all major podcast streaming platforms. We interview
How? And then?
What do you think of that? Do you like that? That's MASH. You heard that, right? They've got a brand new. No, so they've got a brand new podcast, MASH and Simpiwe, and he was also congratulating us on starting the show on time today, which I think was a bit sarcastic. But we've also got a whole bunch of other people, and let me go through some of these. So here's the first one on the WhatsApp line this morning.
Gareth and team, been a long time listener. You can probably hear by my Moy accent, and I'm from Pretoria. Just want to say keep up the good work, and I'm listening to you guys every morning. Thanks.
I love it.
Yeah, and then we've got this one.
Hey, Cliff Central. This is an absolutely brilliant idea. Well done to the team, and thanks for giving us this opportunity to actually broadcast our own voices. Fantastic.
See, we get to hear people for the first time. Listen to this one.
Hey, morning, good people of Cliff Central. It's Pillay here. So I'm still listening to today's podcast of the GCS. And I had to share about the first podcast you ever listened to. And it got me thinking about my story of discovering podcasts. So in 2020, I used to follow a few radio presenters on Twitter. And
Did that cut off? I haven't heard. I can't hear the rest of it. I think it's cut off on my side.
Like, wow, there's an app. This is interesting. I downloaded the app instantly. And I realized that there were shows, okay, Monday, Tuesday. Then I listened to one of those shows. It was one with Leanne. Hey, this was really interesting to me. Just people talking for like an hour and another hour. Wow. This is so interesting. And I discovered other podcasts on the internet or on the app, Cliff Central app. Sex Talk. Wow, that's one of my favorites. And other podcasts, I'm like, whoa, I wish I discovered this earlier. So since then, I've been listening to every show. I know one show. So the Gareth Cliff Show was the best podcast I ever listened to.
Wow. Wow.
So some nice voice notes there. You want to join in the party? Then send us your voice note. You can send it as a WhatsApp to 071 783 6214. We want to hear from you.
I do want to say that voice notes work for a radio show like this or media that is audio based.
Yeah.
I hate it when people send you voice notes on your WhatsApp though. Like I can't answer your phone. Yeah. I couldn't answer the call. And then you send me a voice note. I cannot listen to your voice note. If you can't type it up, you can still you can voice to type, you can like dictate.
What's the appropriate length if you have to send a voice note? Because sometimes I do that when I'm driving, just because I don't want to be driving and typing.
But you know that it can type for you. You do know that, right? That you can talk to it and it types, so the person on the other side gets a text. Yeah. No.
So would you prefer a badly spelled, badly written out text which you've created with voice, or would you rather just listen
because
to
if I couldn't because if I couldn't take the call, it means I can't listen to the voice note.
Okay. All right. Well,
also
Marco
don't make it too long. Don't be 15 minutes.
Yeah, Marco says 30 seconds. Chris says anything over a minute is too long. Under a minute, please. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. But I hate voice notes.
So someone says here, Ruth says that the message is cut off. Okay, well, I'm going to have to try that again. You know what I can do is let me just see if this one plays. Let's just take a listen to this. This is from Ruth, actually.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Rebellious Ruth, just checking in.
All right, so there we go. You hear that one properly?
Ooh. Nice voice. So this is the nice thing though, but like people must send us voice notes so we can hear your voices. It's so nice. Now I can hear your voice when I read your messages.
Okay. Yeah, good. I agree with that. I like that too, because then we can hear what kind of, so you hear someone's voice, it tells you a lot more about them than if you just read their text. So if you can do that for us, let us know. 071 783 6214. That is the number. You don't have to, you don't have to send us messages, but we quite like the idea of playing a voice note. And every now and then you can, I just played a bunch of them this morning. There are some more that I didn't get to. But really, if you have anything in your mind and you think that this would be a great way to start the show every morning, we're going to be looking through those every day. We will listen to every voice note. So, Pumi, Gijs says here, I would rather listen to a voice note instead of reading a message with a voice note length of 3 minutes.
No. Listen, no one should be sending 3-minute long voice notes.
Right.
Don't send a 3-minute long voice note. But you know what I do want to tell you about, because it's still early. When you get the chance today, guys, speaking of podcasts and watching things after it's been live, go and find on the US Open Twitter handle, they were calling it the Spike Cam. It'll make your day. Spike Lee was at courtside this morning. Well, this morning for us, at the Venus Serena Williams match.
Yeah.
Spike Lee was live.
What did he do?
He was. You've seen Spike Lee at the basketball, right?
No, not really.
No. Okay, so Spike Lee, big basketball fan, courtside, very intense, but also, he gets up, he's very engaged. He was having the same experience courtside today at Serena's match. He was high-fiving people at the break points.
Okay. So there's a whole show going on. There's a show going on off the court as well.
Oh my goodness! Look, it was a hell of a match. Serena was in Serena form, and she's through to the next round. Spoiler alert: she is through to the next round. But go and see the outtakes of Spike Lee courtside. They even started calling it the Spike Cam because he was so.
I love that. That's awesome.
It'll make your day. If we don't do it, it'll do it.
Okay, good. And we've got something else to look at. I don't really watch tennis, but I mean, anything that'll make it more exciting, I'll give a try. Why the hell not?
Do you watch sports? Every time, I feel like every time we talk about sports, you're like, I don't watch that.
Not really. Not really. And I know it's such a weird thing, so I don't talk about it very much because most people do watch sport. And most people love watching sport. And I feel like I'm a rank outsider when it comes to this stuff because I cannot concentrate on it for long. And unless things are happening every 5 minutes, which they don't in any sport, I just get bored. Even at that competitive level, if I'm not involved, I know it's so selfish and self-absorbed, but if I'm not involved, if I'm not actually playing the game myself, I don't see any reason to take part. I really don't. I'm not a good spectator.
For the past couple of years, they've been doing this. Obviously, for the past 2 years, there was no comrades, and this past weekend was the comrades race.
Yes.
But you could follow your friends or people that they could share with you their number, and you could follow them on the app or online. So you can watch because the comrades is like at my house when we were growing up. My parents, this was a thing. We'd wake up, we'd watch the 6. It used to start at 6, and now they start at 5:30. So we'd be up, we'd have breakfast, we'd watch the people go off at the beginning of the race, and they always have this. It's so emotional, They have these big shots and of all the people getting ready just at the starting line, and there's thousands of them. And they play the theme music from Chariots of Fire. It's always such a thing, right? It's like ding 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 ding. It's such a thing. And then through the day you watch it, intervals. You watch various because then it's on the whole day. But the best part is watching that last hour of the marathon as the last, just before they close the gates. Right? The last people coming into.
I can't watch. It's too depressing.
Oh, no ways. It's amazing. It's amazing. These people have been running for 12 hours.
That's exactly why it's so ridiculous. And they still didn't come first. So why are they even bothering? They should have turned around and gone home. I've never understood this. And I say it every time. People go, ha, 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 you're so funny. But think about it. If aliens landed, they saw a bunch of human beings running from Maritzburg to Durban. And they were like, okay, I see it's a competition. So why do the people, after the first guy crosses the line, why do the rest of the people carry on? What's that all about? Doesn't make sense. They should all go home. All of them. And especially, like I can kind of understand if you would be going for a gold or a silver, right? Like, how many gold medals do they give out? Like 10.
I have to, I found this, oh my goodness, about one of the guys, one of the first kind of runners in the comrades. It was the most hilarious post I have ever seen, that he ran in his rugby boots. Like the guy was. Did you see that?
Let me read you. This is good. I know what you mean. It shows you how the comrades have become so serious, and like running has even become a serious thing where, once upon a time, here we go. Bill Payne, a Springbok rugby player, ran the Comrades Marathon in 1922 in rugby boots, stopped for a chicken curry in Hillcrest, drank beer in the Drummond Hotel, accepted peach schnapps en route, and enjoyed tea and cake with his family in Pietermaritzburg before finishing in 8th position. Payne played a club rugby match the next day. Now that would have been, I mean, that guy had fun. He had fun. He had a great race. Stopped for a chicken curry, had some beer, peach schnapps, popped in with his family for tea and cake, and still came 8th.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Listen, sports for me is one of those things. I love watching sports. I love watching lots of different types of sports, because it's just so unbelievable for me what people can do with their bodies and their minds, because that's what the Comrades is about, right? It's a mind race. More than everyone I know who's ever run the Comrades will tell you that it's all about your mental strength. Like, your physical strength can only get you so far, but it's all about your mental strength.
I don't care. I just don't care. I wish I could give a shit about someone else's mental strength, but it does nothing for me. So Tabo says Gareth probably has a gunt that he doesn't like sport because he doesn't like it. Greg says there are 10 gold and under 7 hours and 30 minutes is silver. Okay.
Wow.
Oh. Tammy says they're trying to beat their own times, man. Oh, well, whoa, I'm going to beat my own times. Well, then just do it at home. Why don't you just, run? You could still figure out, like, measure the distance of the comrades, and you run it yourself. Or just go run it yourself quietly on a Thursday when no one has to watch. Block the roads. You know what I mean? Anyway, sport becomes even more interesting once you have some skin in the game, but be careful with Betway. He. So Pablo is busy saying there that he obviously takes sports betting into this, which is interesting. Sun Marie says it's not a race of speed only, Gareth. It's also a race of endurance. I'm saying that as someone who's never watched it, and I don't love it either. Yeah, well, whoopee. I don't. You can't make me interested in something I'm not interested in. Boer Willem says, I just finished the Comrades an hour ago. So proud of myself. Yeah, I'm not impressed by that Comrade story. We've all had a night out like that, says Congo Chris. All right.
You people are animals.
Yeah.
Animals, really.
Tracy says, whenever I go hiking in a nature reserve with my kids and one of those heavily kitted out trail runners comes swishing past, I'm thinking, my child is doing the same hike, same distance, without all that crap. So, yeah. The camel pack, compression socks, buff, 2,000 Rand running shorts, 9,000 Rand running shoes. Oh, please. I like the guy who won it. I like the guy who won it. He got like 100,000 Rand from his employer. He's got, that's an impression.
240, I think, is the prize money.
Yeah, but that's nice. Good for him. I'm always interested in the winner, but I don't need to watch the stupid race. It does nothing for me. Nothing. I don't watch rugby, tennis, football, cricket, nothing. I don't watch any of that stuff. Could care less. Now let's stop talking about it because I know everybody else on earth loves it. So I'm the only one. It's just me on this side and everybody else on this side. I get it.
But I think social media, especially like Instagram, has made everything a show. It's made running the comrades or just running because people are taking pictures and posting on social media and the shoes and the this and and one of the things that has fascinated me to no end because of social media is the queues of the people at Mount Everest at the top to take that picture. The picture that you see of everybody who's like done the summit.
You're telling me they queue? You're telling me they climb up the highest mountain in the world, go through that cold and that wind and the frostbite and the avalanches and the those poor Sherpas.
Google it.
So
there's no avalanches, but just Google
and they queue at the top of Mount Everest. Wow.
Google it. When you see the people off the picture, just waiting to take the picture, it's very funny.
I can't believe that. That just proves how stupid it is. I mean, here's the picture. Oh my God. Well, then it's not okay, so now even that's not an achievement, if you ask me. If people
listen, it is an achievement. They have to jump over dead bodies to get to that queue. They are actual dead bodies. They are actual people who have died on that. Like,
it's all become so pedestrian. Look at this. Those are the people queuing. Can you fucking believe that? I'm sorry. That is ludicrous. I mean, you've just shown me some other reason to be cross this morning, and I was having a good day.
Why are you cross? Why are you cross?
Because if there are this many people, I guarantee you some of those people are not athletes. If they're that many, then all it is a question of getting your plane ticket, getting to the foot of the mountain, doing a little bit of training maybe, and then you get to that queue like everyone else. Oh, no, that's not an achievement. Sorry. That's a photo opportunity. I mean, there's a shorter queue to meet Denzel Washington at the moment. Really? It's outrageous. People are doing that.
It's my favorite. When I saw that, love it.
Apparently, there's an app where you can Photoshop yourself on top of Mount Everest. Pretty epic. It trended a while ago. People on the summit in bikinis, baseball gear, etc. You see? I mean, if I gave a shit what other people thought of my achievements, then maybe I'd do some of this stuff and take a picture of myself there and all of that. I really don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand. What is the point of having that photo, says Tracy. No one can see you. Some are wearing oxygen masks, fighter pilot goggles. Nah, sure, it's one hell of an accomplishment, but what's the point of the picture? I suppose you have to prove to people you made it to the top, right?
How will people know on social media? If it's not on social media, did it really happen?
But why would anyone care about the opinion of strangers? It's the weirdest thing. What do you want people you've never met must now think, wow, I'd love to meet Pumi because she climbed Everest? I don't think anyone says that. Especially if there's that many people who've climbed Everest. That many people who've done it. Why bother?
Actually did not. Until I saw that picture, I actually didn't realize how many people climbed Everest.
It's insane. All right, let's look at some headlines. Here are some things that do affect all of us, because whether you climb mountains or not is totally your business. Oscar Pistorius is still agitating to get out of prison. He wants an early release from prison. So he's going to court to try and force South African authorities to hold a parole hearing for him. Former Paralympic gold medalist is serving a 13-year sentence for killing Reva Steenkamp back in 2013. He shot her through a locked toilet door. I don't think anyone doesn't remember this, but just in case, he claims he mistook her for a burglar. He's seeking an early release over a dispute about when his sentence started. Well, surely we know when his sentence started. Right? I mean, everyone on earth watched the trial. So the moment the judge goes...
Do you think he's just prolonging his pain? I think he is. I think if he just like put his head down and just did his time, did whatever people do when they're in
Pumi,
prison.
if you've ever
He
seen the
just
inside, I don't know, if you've seen the inside of a South African prison, please believe me, an extra 5 minutes is 5 minutes too many.
listen. Bona. All I'm saying is he is not even in the extra 5 minutes. He is in the agony and the pain of fighting every minute, not even the extra minutes, right? And I just think it makes it worse. Stop it, Carl. Stop it.
You know, Carl's just brought up like the dumbest, oldest joke in the world. He says Oscar doesn't have a leg to stand on here. Anyway, all right. So he says he's already served enough time to be eligible for parole, and therefore authorities should look at whether he can be released early. In 2017, he said, the SCA said rather, the Supreme Court of Appeal said he should serve 13 years and 5 months for the murder, overturning a previous and more lenient punishment for 6 years that he had to do. Last year, the same court ruled that his current term should be backdated to October 2014, when he was initially sentenced for a lesser charge of culpable homicide. Pistorius argues that this backdating means he became eligible for parole in February last year. So, I mean, this has already taken a long time. He's held in Attridgeville prison, and they say the Court of Appeal has been giving contradictory rulings, so they don't actually know what the rule is. Anyway, so we will have to see what happens, but he's trying to get out early, Oscar. And I mean, even if you hate Oscar Pistorius, there's no one in the world who wouldn't want to get out early if they could. And then, Pumi, you have to have an opinion on this dispute going on. You know, there's King Misuzulu, but there's this other guy, Prince Simakade, who says that he's the real king. And he went to a wedding the other day, and then people started calling him the king of all Zulus in front of other royal family members. And what does this mean? I mean, surely it's been settled. The king was crowned the other day.
You know what? This poor guy. Do you see, even this thing, it's at a wedding somewhere, him and his little faction of people.
Right.
Now there's a person with no leg to stand on. It's terrible. It's terrible. And he's having, it's fascinating to watch. And it happens, right? It happens all the time. It happens
there are disputes
everywhere across the world where there are disputes on kind of succession. People have disputes. It happens on a smaller scale in people's families, where people have disputes about who's inheriting what.
Correct.
So my view is they just need to like let him fade into oblivion. Stop reporting on it. Stop following him. He'll get over it.
Oh, here's an interesting comment from Nsizwa, who says, I work in prison and Oscar is living a nice life. He's not your regular prisoner. There's some interesting stuff. Why is Jub out of prison making trash TV shows and Oscar's still in jail? That's biased. They should both be in prison forever, says Sanele. Well, both Jub and Oscar, right? Nobody's really like out there screaming for them to be released. No one's desperate for them to come out. Anyway, Stink Mina says Simakade can't be king. He was born out of wedlock and his mom was a side chick.
Hey, and how did that Prince Mangosuthu, when he was explaining it all? Spicy. Spicy.
Well, on a yearly basis, there's this gathering near Camperdown. They host Zulu cultural events. Those events gain prominence by being attended by senior royal family members. At some point, the family invited King Goodwill Zwelithini, but he couldn't come. Instead, he sent a senior delegation of royal family members to represent him. Now, 2 weeks ago, the family had a traditional Zulu wedding for one of the sons. It's alleged that they sent an invite to Prince Simakade and his backers within the Zulu royal family to come to the ceremony. Furthermore, it was alleged that the family wanted the prince, who is the firstborn son of the king, and who is fighting for the Zulu throne against King Misuzulu and Prince Buzabazi, to be accorded the status of king by being saluted with Bayed, right? There was a talk that the Zulu regiments would be organized to attend the wedding and salute the king, or the prince in this case, as king. Nkosi heard that he heard that and sent his nduna to tell the family, to tell them that should not happen, as there is only one king, and it's King Misuzulu.
Stop it.
Hmm.
Stop it. Send somebody to just say, just stop with this nonsense.
I mean, this article goes on for like paragraphs about
it's not necessary.
It's crazy, right?
It's not necessary. But yesterday I was reading a thing about Monaco and royalty in Monaco and their relationship to France. Did you know this, Gareth? That up until I think 2014 or something, if the current regent was unable to produce an heir, then
Monaco reverts to France.
Would revert to France, but they've changed it now to say actually it can also move along in terms of other, what did they say, royal collateral, so cousins and such like people, but they would have to change their name to Grimaldi.
Well, there've been situations throughout history where the king of somewhere as far apart as Naples and Sicily and England were all owned by the same king. They were all ruled over by the same king. And then what would happen is that if the king didn't produce a male heir in some places, he'd lose some of those territories. So the female heir could inherit part of it, but maybe not the whole thing. So, I mean, it's always happened that there are these funny disputes, these strange lines of succession. Inheritance law, it's complicated, man.
Yeah, this is exactly this Magate situation over here. He is kind of going, I was first, therefore. But again, rubbish.
Well, and
move on.
If you're getting into House of the Dragon, I watched the first 2 episodes last night, and that's also, I mean, the whole of the first 2 episodes all about this succession. Who takes over?
Okay, I'm going to watch it next week when there are 3 episodes.
No, it's good. Yeah. It's worth
KZN again this weekend.
It's worth getting into it once there are a couple that you can watch in a row.
Yeah, and we're a bit spoiled now, right? We're a bit spoiled now because of Netflix. We just want like 12 episodes all at once.
Exactly.
But maybe there's a case to be made for watching like episode by episode and then like sitting with it and letting all the pieces touch sides for you during the course of the week and, savor the experience.
Well, we always joke about COPE on the show, the political party Congress. I mean, you see, you're already laughing. Let me tell you what happened. So COPE has threatened to open a criminal case against disgruntled members who physically disrupted a media briefing in Boksburg on Wednesday.
Do you have the video?
No.
Did you see the video?
No.
Gareth, find
it. Is it worth it? Oh, wow. Okay.
It is all worth it to see the terror in Tara's eyes, to see the chaos and the running. There were actual, like, fisticuffs exchanged. It was
let me explain what happened to people just in case, because I don't have the video. But the acting general secretary, Eric Mohlapamaswi, said that the party will not tolerate this kind of behavior. Apparently, a fistfight broke out at the briefing after disgruntled members demanded that suspended party president Mosiuoa Lekota not address them. He also said the party's leadership challenges are being addressed. So they have now deteriorated. I mean, what is COPE, like 1% of the vote in South Africa at the moment?
Listen, I saw somebody tweeted, there's such a thing as fighting for nothing. And here, there's nothing to fight for.
Right. I mean, this is so stupid. And really, are we seriously... They're fighting over leadership of bugger all. It's not like there's tons and tons of people all over the country. There's swathes of people all over South Africa waiting to be led by Mosiuoa Lekota. Please. COPE has completely fallen apart. Do you remember how COPE started? I voted for them in one election. I was like, okay, cool, let's give these guys a go. And it was Mosiuoa Lekota and
Mbazi Mashilowa.
Well, it took like 3 days after the election and they started fighting about who should be the boss. Do you remember?
Listen, this whole thing has been going on since last Friday. I was actually talking about this with somebody in the office yesterday. This thing started last Friday with Willie Madisha. Do you all remember Willie Madisha? He's the one
Yes.
in Parliament.
Yeah.
Anyway, he is the deputy president of COPE. So between Willie Madisha and Musiwa Lekota, remember that the fallout between Musiwa Lekota and Mbazima Shilowa was about who is going to be the leader of the organization.
Correct. It's always about this.
And there was court cases, whatever, and Mbazima is out. Now he's just relegated to tweeting all his opinions, right? Now Musiwa has been the leader of the party since then. And now Willie Madisha and Musiwa are having this fight. And the suspension for Willie Madisha was the person who held the press conference. He is the person who signed the suspension letter. He is the deputy president of COPE. And they're fighting about who's going to be the next president of COPE. And so he's suspended Musiwa Lekota. And the charge is his role that he played in breaking apart the party.
Oh my
I was
God.
like, it's a nightmare.
Unbelievable. All right, well, I'm gonna see if I can get this video because now I need to see it. I haven't seen it, so I feel very left out here. But we'll see if we can get that on. In the meantime, here's something else in the news. We'll come back to that in a second. They found a new breed of malware in South Africa. You know, malware that installs on your system,
Yes.
and then they can ask you for a ransom. And apparently this new breed of malware, these people have already demanded more than 13 million rand in ransom. It's called Agenda, and a cybersecurity company called Trend Micro has founded in Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Thailand, and South Africa. The ransom amount demanded for the victim to regain access to their system has gone as high as 800,000 rand or 13.6 million rand. That's crazy, right? Crazy. We've got to talk to our friend Jaco Voigt about this. He works in cybersecurity, among other things. So I want to ask him about that. That sounds scary as hell. Imagine being locked out of your system and then they say to you, well, if you want to get back in, you have to pay us 13 million rand. I mean, most people would say, I don't have 13 million rand. Just keep my system, you know? I'd rather start again. I mean, that's a lot of money. Anyway, there has been quite a lot of snow in the Eastern Cape, believe it or not. Blankets of white snow turned the Eastern Cape into a winter wonderland on Monday and Tuesday. The South African Weather Service's Gqeberha office said that snow fell over the southern Drakensberg up to a place called Ugie, as well as in the Winterberg Mountains, including Hogsback, from Monday night until Tuesday morning. So people there are excited.
Hogsback, that's just outside Grahamstown.
Yeah. And they said that the snow started melting by Wednesday afternoon. The weather authority said there's a slight chance of thunderstorms hitting parts of the province on Thursday. So we spoke to a lightning pathologist yesterday, Pumi, someone who deals especially with lightning strikes. And it was a really interesting conversation. We spoke to him for about half an hour about this, asked all kinds of questions. I'm sure he thought some of our questions were stupid, but we had to ask them. And then last night, I saw one of our listeners posted a video of lightning in Cape Town. And they said they were nervous as hell because they'd listened to the lightning pathologist the day before. How do you like them apples? So I would suggest...
But in Cape Town, you don't have to worry as much as you do out there near Hilton, that Pietermaritzburg area. Apparently, that's where the highest incidences of lightning to ground strikes are in the country.
In Hilton, in Maritzburg?
In that area, yeah.
Wow. Okay, I was at primary school there. I survived. I got by without being struck by lightning.
The first time I heard that, that's what I thought. That's where all the boarding schools are.
Yeah. Well, go and take a listen to yesterday's discussion with Prof. Blumenthal. It's fascinating.
I love to hear that.
Yeah. You'll love it. It's terrific. All right, so here's the fight on... Here's the fight that happened in Cope. All right, we've got to watch this. So if you're listening, I'll try to explain it afterwards, but you may just have to skip 30 seconds.
Explain it throughout like a boxing match.
Well, You see, I can't because then it echoes. So let's just do this.
This is my father.
You can stop it here. Now it's all just word fights.
So there we go. So it starts off with Mosiwa Lekota sitting there, and he sees this guy come running and like tackle this guy and punch him. And he goes, and Mosiwa Lekota's face is like, what? What the hell? And then you see all these big, these fat men get up and like try to take control of the situation. And it's such a disaster. What an embarrassment. Really.
It's what a fall from grace. But so just before that, at the beginning of this press conference, because I watched so many parts of this video yesterday, so many times, you see Mosiwa eating samosas and drinking his tea before all gets going. And then they start talking, and the guy runs in and manhandles all the microphones in front of Mosiwa, and you see Mosiwa's terror. It's just like, what's going on? I think he was thinking this guy is actually gonna accost him, and he wasn't prepared to respond in any kind of physical way. And somebody tackled that guy to the floor. He's the guy that then just gets up and just bolts towards the door. He runs, he leaves. I think there were two guys that came in to disrupt, because then the second of the two guys, unlike the first who bolts with the door.
You say only two guys, but I mean that's half the membership of COPE.
He gets the second one kind of gets held up and punched in the face a couple of times, and then he's so the guy who was trying to stop the press conference, now that he's been punched in the face, is now trying to calm the situation. It's just let go. That whole thing was just so terrible. So terrible for Terra.
So great. I love that.
So terrible for Terra.
No, well, there you go. So Paul Drake says, COPE divided and conquered itself. That's about right. That's about right. That's the most sensible thing we could say about all of that. All right. I want you to watch this, Pumi, and tell me what your thoughts are. This is about millennials. This is obviously Steve Bannon, who was the brains behind Trump's election. And he is a much reviled man in America in most quarters. But a lot of people think he's quite a genius. He's a smart guy when it comes to elections. Take a listen to what he has to say here and tell me what you think of it.
We've essentially put the burden on the bailout on the working class and middle class. That's why nobody owns anything.
Right.
But the millennials today are nothing but 19th century Russian serfs. They're better fed, they're better clothed, they're in better shape, they have more information than anybody in the world at any point in time. But they don't own anything. They're not going to own anything. Okay, and they're 20%. If you mark in time against their parents, they're 20% behind in their income, and there's no pension plan in the future. They're all gig economy. We've literally destroyed the middle class in this country.
Okay.
And both political parties. By the way, this is not about Republicans and Democrats.
Right.
This is the way the system works, and this is the way the system comes together.
So, what do you think of that? Do you think he makes a good point? I mean, this is how a lot of millennials are feeling. They are behind their parents. They don't own a property. They don't have a career. They have gig jobs. It's the gig economy. They don't have savings. They travel. They spend their money that they do have. So they are behind where their parents or any other generation before them was. And there's no way for them to catch up. And I hear this from a lot of young people, that they feel that they are constantly treading water.
So this is a great conversation to be having, because it's the flip side of a coin of the conversation we're having in the next hour with
Yes.
The Enemy Within, with the writer of the book.
Right.
Because here in South Africa, we have exactly the same issue, right? All over the world. But this is the way that the world is stacked up now. The world is stacked up this way because this is how capital keeps itself. Capital keeps itself, So people with the money keep the money. This is how you do it. And the whole system is geared to help them make more money. And how you make more money, the thing about a gig economy is you have less burden on the shareholders, right? Because
Right.
now you don't have to worry about pension funds. You don't have to worry about a net for your employers because you're not going to have them for 20 years. You're going to have them for the 3
Correct.
months that you need them, and then they can move on to
And then
something
they're gone.
else, so you can
Yeah.
discard them.
Right.
It's the new world order. It's the world we ordered.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people feel this exactly this way. I mean, Gigashack is saying, don't make all these woke people depressed. But the fact is, like, the truth does hurt, right? And this is
It
what's
is
going
the
on.
world we ordered.
This is so many people are stuck in exactly this situation. They can't afford to buy anything. They don't own anything. And of course, they eat well. They get to travel. They get to Instagram themselves. They get to have information on their phones. But they don't own a damn thing.
We talk about the damage to the economy that the COVID lockdowns created, but the flip side of that coin is that a hell of a lot of businesses and business people have made a heck of a lot of money out of that experience, and
Sure.
and that's what this cycle that the millennials find themselves in is about, right? It's about who
Absolutely.
makes all the money. It's not them. That's why they are poorer than their
Yeah,
parents.
but I mean, at some point, it also has to come down. So surely, I mean, I agree with you that the politicians have made terrible policy decisions. We've flooded the economies of the world with money since COVID because that's what governments think people need. And we were even talking about this at the start of the show this morning with the social welfare thing. But at the same time, we've maybe done more damage than good because ultimately, also, it's up to people to take responsibility for themselves. And you hear a lot of people going, you and I have discussed this too, Pums. I don't need to own a house. I'd rather just pay rent. Why should I fix someone else's? Why should I, fix all these things, own property, have that responsibility? I'd rather just travel or rent someone's place. That's what a lot of millennials say. So here's the twist in it. I mean, this is the flip side of it. And you did mention who we're going to be talking to just now. It's a book which I suggest that anybody who's interested in the inner workings of the ANC pick up and read. Mpumelelo Mkhabela, who is a political analyst and a columnist with News 24, a former editor of the Sowetan and Daily Dispatch, former parliamentary correspondent for the City Press and the Sunday Times, and who has a PhD in political science, has written this book called The Enemy Within. And this is really interesting. It's about how the ANC actually has started to fall apart and where it all began. And you've just read it now. I actually sent it for you the other day, and I read it like a week or two before that. So it's still fresh in my mind. There's so many things I want to ask this guy.
But so what it is, and of course, because this is also human nature, right? Human nature is hopeful. So when you hear the millennials say, "I'm happy not to own anything," it's a little bit of a self-preservation mechanism, right? If you can't afford to own it, what you need to tell yourself is that you're happy not to.
Right.
The fact that you spend, and this is also when we're speaking about the social security net. This is also the problem that today's problems here in South Africa are minuscule compared to what will happen in the future if we don't solve these problems, right? Because this millennial problem that Steve Bannon is talking about, ours is not self-made, so
Right.
because people are not working, people are not able to save for a retirement or for their later years. So
Correct.
what would essentially be the country's saving for looking after the old people, or the young people working, like if you've got a pension plan or an RA
Sure.
or any of those things, they don't have the opportunity to do that. In your fit years, in your working years, you're supposed to work so that when you are no longer able to work, there is something to keep you and your lifestyle going. And we're not going to
Correct.
have that. That's the same thing that he's talking about with the millennials. So where they are not saving for down the line when they're retiring, where there will be no way of looking after those old people because YOLO.
Yeah. Well, let's discuss that and a whole lot more. We've got just a couple of minutes until we get into the burning platform for this morning. Among other things, we'll be talking to Mpumelelo Mkhabela, who is a political analyst and columnist with News 24. Also just written a brilliant book called The Enemy Within, which both Pumi and I have been poring over for the last couple of days. Excited to talk to Mpumelelo. And also, we want to hear what your thoughts are on this in the burning platform, which is coming up next. We'll also be joined by a star appearance from Kanthan Pillay, who's going to be joining us again for the burning platform this morning, a return champion. And I don't know if it's been confirmed yet because we were still trying to get hold of him and make sure it was all on for this morning, Dada Morero, who is an ANC Johannesburg regional chairperson. Now, what would make it great if Dada Morero is coming on is that we have struggled. Pumi, you know this. We've struggled to get the ANC to be on the show. Everybody else comes anytime you want. ANC, we've tried everything. We've always sent invitations out to them. We always make sure that we follow up. We talk to whoever they suggest we should talk to get them on the show. And the ANC has been elusive, despite being the majority party. So if we can't talk to them and to actual people in there, we'll talk to the next best, the people who are actually analyzing them from the outside. And one of those people is Mpumelelo Mkhabela. And we'll be talking to him just now. So stick around for that and a whole lot more. CliffCentral.com on a Thursday morning. This is the morning of the burning platform. Stick around for that. On its way. Oh, hang on. It looks like we have lost our break, Simpiwe. Don't know where that is. And I mean, I'd love to just play the cope fight again, but I think we've already done that. All right. Well, while they're busy loading that, we'll be back in just a moment.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
My friend has one because he does competitive racing a little bit on, I think he does F1 2022 as well as Gran Turismo. And his sim is out of this world.
And do they live racing against each other?
They do live racing against each other.
That must be so cool.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
What do they like organize race meets and?
Well, I think it's esports, right? So it's organized by either a sponsor or.
And you can enter.
You can enter yourself, and the quickest times qualify to actually do a full race.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right, it is Thursday morning, which means we get to check in on all the big stories of the week. We get to talk about the things that are affecting our lives and the stories that everybody else is interested in. And among other things this morning, we will be focusing in on the ANC. I'm also thrilled that we've got the author of a book called The Enemy Within, Mpumelelo Mkhabela, who I introduced earlier. Mpumelelo, it's very nice to see you, and thank you very much for making time to be with us today.
Thank you, Gareth, for the invitation.
It's a great pleasure. And well done on the book, by the way. It's a really interesting insight into what goes on in the ANC. There's so many things that we know about the ANC, but there are also so many things that we don't know. And before we get into the book or too much else around the book, I also want to welcome Dada Morero, who's the elected ANC representative for the Joburg regional office. He's the chairperson of the ANC at the regional conference in June this year. He was elected. He is committed to contributing to the ANC's renewal program by sorting out the structures, reconnecting the region's branches, and engaging the community on all the issues. But we're thrilled to have you here. And Dada, thank you very much for making time to be with us today. It's always been a little bit difficult for us to get the ANC to send us people to talk on the show. I don't know if they're frightened or anything. I promise you we're not going to be horrible to anybody. So I'm glad that you could join us this morning. Dada, can you hear us? Oh, I think
we can't hear you. Maybe you're on mute.
Simpiwe, will you just see if you can sort that out? I don't think he's on mute. It seems like he's connected there. So we'll see if we can just get him back on. And also a little bit later on, we'll be joined by Kanthan Pillay, who of course has been on the Burning platform before. But while we're getting started here, Mpumelelo, just to let people know about your book, to give them a précis, you really go into like the whole idea of cadre deployment, the cadre project, which is a project that the ANC started back in 2000 to develop ANC members and to try and get them to steer clear of corruption, to embrace a new morality. And obviously you look at the situation 22 years later and you go, that was all for nothing, right? That was all for naught. It was a complete waste of time. It seems like we just kind of went backwards, if anything. Oh, now it looks like we've lost the. Well, we're definitely being sabotaged this morning. I don't know what's going on there.
Okay, well, that's everyone in the comments has been desperate to hear what I think about the hate speech ruling.
Oh yeah, let's go on that. Let's start off with that. Go for it.
And I do want to say that we did try and get Ernst to come on the show.
Yes.
To join us today. He was unable to because of why, Ghana? Because of like school runs. Because of school runs.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it would have been quite full. As you can see, we've already got two guests. Of course, technical problems notwithstanding, and Kanthan. So I think it was too many things in one. Let's hold off on that because I do want to hear your opinion on it, but maybe we get to that at the end.
Can we get the guys again? Okay.
Yes, I don't want to lose time with Mpumelelo.
Absolutely.
So I gave a little précis there of this cadre deployment and the cadre project, which you talk about 22 years ago. It's amounted to very little, hasn't it, Mpumelelo?
It has. And by the way, Gareth, at the time when there was a talk of this new cadre, the new kind of member of the ANC who would be morally upright, who would shun away from things like corruption, who will be technically skilled. At the time when there was a discussion about that, there was already a realization that something had gone wrong. And there was a need for some kind of a rebirth, some kind of a Damascus moment for members to change their ways and to adopt a new morality. But we know that since then, nothing has happened. Either the cadre was never born, or was still born, or was aborted.
Yeah, for me, that's a hell of a thing to say, right? It was either stillborn or it was aborted. Woo. Where do you think it goes wrong? Do you think that there wasn't any desire to actually sort the problem out, or do you think it was just what a lot of politicians do, lip service? Well, we're going to sort this out, we're going to make it better. We know even now there's still people in the ANC who say, "Oh no, there's an ANC worth saving. There are good people in this organization. We just have to put them at the top of the food chain."
Look, I tried to grapple with that issue in this book. And one of the things I try to analyze is the commitments the ANC makes. I mean, if you look back from that day that we're discussing, that was 2000, at that National General Council in Gqeberha, when the decision was taken that, we need a new cadre, new morality. There's a lot of commitments that the ANC makes. If you look at its conferences from 1997, where there was a talk of we need to deal decisively with corruption, right up to the Nasrec conference where Cyril Ramaphosa was elected president. So the ANC is rich with literature on commitments to fight corruption. So I tried to analyze how is it that a party that has made so much commitment to fight corruption has actually turned out to be consumed by the problem. And I try to deal with, for example, the leadership, the element of leadership, how different leaders have dealt with the problem. From Nelson Mandela's time, Thabo Mbeki's time, Jacob Zuma's time, and now up to Cyril Ramaphosa. And one of the things I found, Gareth, when I was doing the research and trying to analyze this problem, I actually found that Jacob Zuma was the most concerned person about corruption. And statistically, if you look at the commitments he was making in the January 8th statement, which is the most important statement of the ANC every year, and also in the State of the Nation addresses when he was president of the country, I found that actually he made more commitments to fight corruption and he showed more concern about corruption than any other leader of the ANC. So, but then at the end of the day, he's the kind of a guy who ended up in prison for failing to testify about what he did when he was president of the country on state capture. Even now, as we speak, I mean, just this week, a ruling came out that he actually has to pay back some 6 million rand for the Nkandla overspend. And the Nkandla story is one of the stories I analyze in this book about it being direct theft and it being an instruction to ANC members and to people in government that they can actually disregard public funds. They can just use them. So that's one of the things I try to deal with, to say there's one side of the commitment, which is rhetoric, which is found in the literature, in the declarations, in the resolutions of conferences. Then there's the other side of how actually the leaders act and behave in leadership positions. So I say that people in government, ordinary civil servants, and ANC members, they take instruction from what the leaders are doing, not what the leaders are saying. So, and that's one of the reasons why corruption became endemic.
There's a lot to unpack here. Before we carry on, Pums, I'm sorry, I want to bring Dada Morero back in. Dada, it's a great pleasure to have you on the show this morning, and thank you for joining us. We've invited many people from the ANC over this time, and I'm thrilled that you could actually come and be a part of the show, because so often we wish there was someone who could speak on behalf of the ANC, and so often they're not willing to join for whatever reasons, or maybe they're unable. Also, Kanthan Pillay is here. So just so that we've got everybody on board, I can bring anybody into the conversation at any time. Let's start with you, Dada, because you've heard what Mpumelelo said now about the ANC and corruption and cadre deployment and whether or not they've been successful in any respect here. Tell us what your feelings are and how it works inside when you're running something like the Johannesburg region for the ANC.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. The issues raised by Mr. Mkhabela are indeed true. The ANC has attempted in a number of conferences to confront this issue called corruption. in particular within the state. And part of the conference or attempts that the ANC would have tried to do was, for example, create institutions internally deal corruption. And I think we should also appreciate that the ANC is one of the biggest organizations and has a responsibility to run the public purse. And as a result, individuals within the ANC, whether leaders or members who then get exposed to the public purse, take advantage of the public purse, regardless of the decisions and the resolutions of the ANC. And those that have done wrong have always tried to find a way of them not being caught by the ANC or be dealt by the ANC internally. And that would be as a result of the structures of the ANC themselves, where people would then fight to be in the upper structures of the ANC, so that whenever they are found to have done wrong, they are part of that structures to make a decision whether to get rid of a person or not. They then use patronage and mobilize members to defend themselves. So that is true. On the second level, we have institutions to try and help us deal with this mess. One is the Integrity Commission. We thought have the ability to help us deal with those that are found against the
Dada, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you. Your line is breaking up very badly, so we can't really. I'm hearing. Dada, I'm sorry, I'm hearing every second word at the moment, so we're going to just see if we can't get you back on a clearer line. But I mean, what he was saying there made a lot of sense, and I think there's a lot of honesty in that. You know, a lot of people get to top positions so that they can defend themselves against corruption allegations. That's the whole reason to climb to the top of the tree in the ANC. It's an interesting point and something which he's not disputing. Mpumelelo, what would you say to that?
Yes, actually, that's one of the most interesting thing, actually, Gareth, if you listen to Mr. Morero, is that there are very few people in the ANC who will tell you that they're not interested in fighting corruption. Basically, everyone will tell you that we're committed to fighting corruption. And in the region where Morero is, where he's chairman, there's a very interesting case which I tried to analyze in the book of Jeff Makugo, the late Jeff Makugo. May his soul rest in peace. Jeff Makugo, as you'd remember, appeared in the Zondo Commission, and he was accused of being Mr. 10%. And I tried to analyze what this Mr. 10% means. Because basically, he was a consultant, some kind of a stakeholder relations consultant, consulting with the companies that have got contracts with the city of Johannesburg, while he was MEC for finance in the city of Johannesburg. And at the same time, he was treasurer of the ANC in the region where Morero is chairman at the moment. And so he was basically fundraising for himself and for the ANC through the people that had contracts with the city of Johannesburg. So I speak about how he put the ANC in a position where it had comparative advantage over fundraising over any other party, because this is a person who's in charge of the finances of the city. He oversees what the city does with its money, and then he's in the position where he could actually sign off contracts, and he uses that to basically fundraise for himself 10% for his company, which he owned with his mother. And then he also fundraised a lot of money for the ANC in the 2014 during the 2014 elections. So, but if you go and look at the speeches of Makugo, you'll find a lot of anti-corruption statements. So, which is the issue I raised in the book. What if what Makugo was doing was not corruption in his own book and in the book of the ANC? Actually, what is corruption? So when people say, like Mr. Morero says, no, they are committed to fighting corruption, they want to implement the resolutions, Integrity Commission and all of that, it's all well and good. But why is it that they're not implementing it? I think that's the issue that we need to discuss. And if we have to take every word from Morero as the truth, and now that he's in a position of leadership as a chairperson of the region, he needs to say, for example, during what Makugo did was wrong, he needs to first admit that, and then say, how is he going to implement the resolution of his region, of the province, and of the national on corruption, wherever he is as chairperson of the region. And he must not say it by word of mouth, because one of the things that I try to analyze in the book is the divergence between words and action.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to respond to that, Dada, and then we're going to ask Kanthan and Pumi a couple of questions. Well, they've got a few questions for you and for Mpumelelo, but do you want to respond to what Mpumelelo just said?
Okay.
You're on.
I hope my line is better now.
Much better. Yes, go ahead.
Much better. Thank you so much. It is true what Mkhabela is raising. In fact, we were affected first in Johannesburg. I think when the matter first surfaced, we had the discussion in the Regional Executive Committee. At that point, I was the Regional Secretary. And we then agreed that the matter is out of our hands as a region because it affects the chairperson of our region. Therefore, the matter should be given over to the Provincial Executive Committee, which the Provincial Executive Committee then took a decision to refer the matter to the Integrity Committee of Johannesburg, of the province. And for some reason, he presented his case, and he was not found guilty by the Integrity Committee based on the facts that he would have submitted to the Integrity Committee. And at that stage, then the ANC in the region accepted the report, and the report was indeed closed. Once the Commission of State Capture came into being, the matter was then resurfaced, and the former Chairperson, Comrade Jeff, had to go and present to the Commission, and of course the Commission had found him to have been in the wrong. Now, before the ANC could entertain the decisions of the Commission, unfortunately, death struck us, and Comrade Dev passed on before the matters of the Commission could also be entertained. Because when he went to the first appearance, we then agreed at the level of the PEC, based on his report that he will be appearing for the second time, the matter will then be addressed after his second appearance. So the decisions on whether what would have happened to Comrade Jeff could have been taken immediately after his testimony at the Zondo Commission. Now, the ANC's inability, as I said, to act, at times it's affected by the fact that those that are found to have done wrong then occupy senior and strategic positions within the organization. And some has the ability, of course, to lobby and compromise other members within the leadership collective, so that when they've done wrong, they've got praise singers and those that sing for the supper will do everything to fight and defend them. And I'm talking about members within leadership structures, branch structures, and at times it becomes so difficult for the ANC to act. However, the ANC needs to take a view that if we were to create a new cadre as we had adopted at our conferences, the ANC needs to be a centralized organization so that the center should be able to act without any fear or favor. But the weakness, therefore, again, is that even at the center, you then find individuals who are compromised. And this is because over a period of time, the ANC had attracted people, in fact, who are not genuine and honest cadres of the ANC, but people who have seen an opportunity that the leadership structures of the ANC presents an opportunity for them to have access to state resources. And as a result of that, they then do wrong. Now, we have to rethink how we structure our organization. We have to rethink who do we put in leadership? And we should not be afraid as the ANC to say, Comrade Dada, you have done wrong. Leave the organization. And the difficulty is making that decision and being decisive on those that have committed wrong and undermined the struggle to advance the quality of life of our people. So I think we need to find a better way. And society should also be able to help us to deal with these issues. And I hope that at some point we'll be able to bring a decisive leadership. In Johannesburg, as you have said, we have taken as the chairperson now, I've taken a view that where I am responsible, my responsibility therefore is to ensure that there's no rhetoric. I act on these matters if we are confronted by those matters without any fear or favor. And as the chairperson of the region, I'm so willing to enter that space and deal with those that would have done wrong in my region.
Pumi?
You know, that it's all well and good to want to have a conversation that says the ANC at the center, at provincial, at this. The reality is the ANC, like all organizations, is it look the way that they describe it, like it's like a person in a coma with no hands and no feet. And the decisions are actually made by the people, right? So when you try and say the ANC, like it's some entity on its own that can make these decisions, it's shifting the blame. It's moving it away from the fact that it is individuals within the branches, within the party, within all of these structures that vote people into positions, support those people, pay them for their votes, and. But and I think one of the things, and I loved your book, Mpumelelo, and I wish we could have had a view. And this is unfortunately what happens when you have organizations that are underground, as the ANC was for so long, in the time that it was banned. Is now there is a conversation that can only really start around 94, because that is when we had a view of what exactly was happening, who was where, and all these speeches and all of that. Every other thing is underground and it's hearsay and. And my view, unfortunately, is that because we don't know who this party is, when we talk about a new cadre, for instance, it's kind of thinking like there's something. Why are we not talking about how this party, even in the underground, before it became government, was funded, and the illicit business that went into funding this party? Years ago, when I read Maya Angelou, one of Maya Angelou's books, and I think it's The Heart of a Woman, she talks about a relationship that she had in Ghana with somebody who was an ANC freedom fighter. Obviously, he's unnamed. But the conversation that she has and the description that she gives of this particular comrade is absolutely, and this was in 1962 or something like that, is not different to all the comrades that we see now in parliament. So is it really that there's this ANC, the comrades of the ANC are new and amoral, as we are being told that they are? Or has this always been the party, and this is always the people that it has been able to attract? And these are the people that are able to ascend in the party. Now they just have access to public funds to do all of this work. We have big conversations about the billion that was spent by Cyril Ramaphosa buying votes or buying his seat as the president of the party. But nobody has the conversation about the people who took the money, the people who he bought, and where those people are, and what those people are doing, and who else can buy those people to make what decisions. We don't have that conversation. This is the party that we have. This is who this party has always been. My assertion is this is who this party has always been.
So you're saying it's in the DNA, Pumi?
It's in the DNA of this party.
Do you agree?
We just don't have sight of what it was before 1994.
Gareth, well, Pumi is raising arguments on the story of relationship Angelo Mayo.
Not relationship, people, not relationships.
No.
I'm talking about a person.
Fine. Now, let's say back in 1994, because Bumi would like to know that. I was in the underground myself, very young at that time. And our responsibility, of course, was to query information and to query ammunition. And that was our responsibility at that time in our unit. And we served with distinction, with commitment and honesty. And of course, would have been given money for transport, for food, and all other logistics that were required for us to do. Now, if you suggest that it is within our body politic that we are corrupt to the teeth, you'd be incorrect. Because the few individuals that have participated in corruption has, of course, destroyed the image of the ANC. But we shouldn't make a mistake and think that those officials in government are members of the ANC. In fact, they are not members of the ANC in their majority. And these are the people that have enabled corruption between officials and politicians to have happened.
Dada, can I ask this question? Can I ask this question?
Only
can I ask this question?
politicians will be involved in corruption.
Dada,
yes, you can.
So if Cyril Ramaphosa spent, the number is $1 billion.
Well, I wanted to come to that point that
get to it quickly. It's in the morning.
Of the ANC
in the morning.
was not to regulate. No, the ANC has not accepted and acknowledged that throughout the world, lobbying and campaigning for leadership positions should, of course, be funded. And the ANC is trying to ignore the reality that, in fact, it has to accept that there will be funding, therefore regulate as to how this funding should happen when people contest for position. It happens in all political parties, by the way.
But
and it's a new thing, of course, in the ANC since 2007. I hear your point.
But
there are people who are delegates. People who receive the money are one is delegates to conference. Two is no one is denying the fact that people were bought.
Okay,
not denying that fact.
Fantastic.
The problem, as I say, Mpumi, is that the ANC does not want to accept that it's in the common cause or in running political campaigns. Funding does happen. Pardon?
Okay, that's
no,
fine.
The ANC doesn't want to accept that
question.
reality. And it's time that the ANC must regulate that space, because it's only through regulation that the ANC will be able to manage the flow of money in campaigns for leadership. It happens.
Dada, you have answered my question. Let's move on to the next thing.
Whether at branch level, regional level, people do use money.
You've answered my question,
thank you.
and we're clear that people within the party are willing to accept money in order to make a decision that favors the person with the money. You've answered that question. The fact that you are unable to regulate it, it's okay.
Those that have money within our ranks stands to lead the ANC, and those genuine and honest cadres who do not have money do not stand a chance to lead this organization. It's true. And hence we are talking to how best can we create a new cadre within our ranks.
All right. So Dada, thank you for answering that. No, thank you for answering that. I'm thrilled that we actually have someone from the ANC here. And again, I want to just be very clear about the fact that we appreciate that you are here accounting for the ANC, because so often we have to talk about you guys and nobody's here to talk about it from within. I want to bring Kanthan in here because he's also got a couple of interesting points of view about where the ANC is headed and what might be happening, and also about, who pays the piper, because as you say, the people who have the money are the ones who may as well make the decisions around who's going to lead. Kanthan, you've got some interesting things to say about.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that I've been hearing from Dada over the past while is, in fact, something that has come out from ANC leadership ever since we became a free country. So the words that get spoken in terms of the commitment to corruption, I truly believe that the people who utter those words believe in those words. The question then becomes, how do we actually translate that into actually eliminating corruption? I think we need a multi-tiered approach to this. And the way in which we start off is to recognize that the essence of corruption is people taking money that's meant to be spent in the public good and diverting a significant chunk of that money to their own personal enrichment. So how do we obviate that scenario as a starting point? So let's separate that scenario from where we are talking about votes being bought in the ANC conferences. Frankly, from my side, I don't care about how votes get bought in the ANC conference because that is an internal matter for them. I am concerned about how public funds actually end up getting spent. And to my mind, the best solution that we can have is to have absolute transparency in terms of how every single bit of money gets spent. So that means that city budgets need to be completely open to scrutiny by all members of the public. Every single line item needs to be open to scrutiny, and our ability to question that as members of the public must be completely unfettered. So we need to know every single salaried person exactly how much they are earning. That gives us the ability to assess whether payments for particular positions are in fact in keeping with what gets paid in the public sector, or whether it's disproportionately high, which would indicate that people are actually being rewarded for some other reason. Once we have that complete transparency, Dada, the way in which that actually helps your cause is right now, as you correctly pointed out, whenever things get raised within the ANC structures, and you have praise singers who then end up lobbying for particular individuals so that they're actually able to avoid scrutiny from within ANC structures and able to avoid action within ANC structures. But if every bit of expenditure, public expenditure, is open to scrutiny, it becomes very difficult for those praise singers to then come out and support, because it is a matter of all of the expenditure being open to the public. That has to be the starting point in terms of how we go about tackling this. We need to become the first country in the world where every single bit of public expenditure is open to scrutiny. Thereafter, the question of what happens within the ANC ranks in terms of who gets paid off and so forth, that's the reason why we have the revenue services. And the revenue services need to be checking out on that. Of course, the difficulty comes when the payments get made in brown envelopes, and we know that frequently this is the case. But once again, lifestyle audits, absolutely right, Karen. So we have the solutions, guys. And
it'll be interesting to see, speaking of lifestyle audits, it'll be interesting to see how that premier and because they're doing polygraphs along with their lifestyle audits, apparently, in the next couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see how that plans out.
Now, having made that point, if one takes a view in terms of lifestyle audits, as you all know, I voted for the ANC up until Thabo Mbeki was ousted, and I've been to President Mbeki's place a couple of times, and certainly if one conducts a lifestyle audit of the way in which he lives, it's very clear that there are no fire pools that are being built. There's no extraordinary expenditure. The man lives within his means, clearly. And you can see that there's nothing there that's out of line with his salary as a retired president of the country. Why are we not actually able to do the same for all of the other ANC cadres? And I think that, Dada, at the point at which you do this, then the public will begin to have a sense of trust.
Well, some went into office being billionaires. Let's not forget about that. And maybe this is a great place to bring Mpumelelo in because, I mean, you covered this in your book too. the role of money in the ANC. And we know, and Dada's been quite honest about this, that there are lots of people who are on the take. They see this as their means to make a quick buck. And you cover some of this in your book too. You talk about how, so often people come in with the best of intentions or the worst of intentions, and then the money changes them.
Yeah, true. I mean, there's a case I refer to another author who actually talked about how in the ANC, the regional secretaries would walk around with a file of two files, basically. They would walk around with a file containing positions that are available in municipalities in the area where they operate. And then there'll be another file which has got a list of tenders in that area. And then I added that actually there's another list that now people carry, a hit list. Now people are dying, they are killing each other because of procurement. All of this, Morero was talking about, like, people fight leadership positions to access state resources, and they support each other, they rent a crowd and all of that. But at the center of it is that which is partly what Kanthan is talking about, but he doesn't address the real issue. There is the incentive system in the ANC, and now it has become a country problem. The incentive to be corrupt is much higher than the risk of being caught. So, in other words, the system is such that it's lucrative to be corrupt, and the idea that you can be caught doesn't wash. And as Morero says, people fight for this leadership position so that they can then control what happens in the party. They use their leadership positions to protect themselves. I can actually go beyond that, which is what I try to analyze in the book. Part of the incentive to be corrupt is that if you can fight and get into a strong leadership position in the ANC, chances are that you might be like Mbeki, like Zuma, like Cyril Ramaphosa, be in a position to control who becomes head of the NPA. Once you can control who becomes head of the NPA, then you can literally manipulate the situation. Zuma was able to suspend the head of the NPA when he thought that there was a risk to himself. Thabo Mbeki managed to tamper with the way Jackie Selebi was investigated because he could control what could happen in the NPA. So the NPA, in terms of the constitution, is nominally independent, but in practice, because of the appointment system of the head of the NPA, it's easy for anyone who is in charge of the party that is in government to basically manipulate the systems of the NPA to their favor. So the incentive to fight for leadership position goes beyond just merely getting a tender there, getting a job there. The stakes are high for the control of the state as a whole. So that's why when state capture happens, you basically have to hollow out the NPA. You basically have to hollow out. Kanthan talks about SARS. We know what happened to SARS because it was identified as a problem. And why was that? Why was it possible to capture SARS? Because the president appoints the head of SARS. So if you can fight in the ANC to become president, you can control SARS via the appointment system. You can control the NPA via the appointment system. You basically can do a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of
and get away with it.
Well,
there's a lot of incentive to fight to get to these positions. So part of the problem is to remove that incentive. How do you do it then? Maybe Morero and them must say, okay, what is their plan to remove the incentive to be corrupt?
Sure. Pumi, you wanted to say something?
Well, part of the reason why we do have so much power resting in the president is also because of the way that our constitution has been constructed, with the Nelson Mandela as the president in mind, with an individual whose moral compass, as it were, which is part of the reason why, even as we are having all this conversation around direct elections and who can be the president of the country or who can be the head of a city or a municipality, has become such a contentious issue, partly because there is so much power that is vested in the presidency and who the president can appoint to what positions and how all of those various institutions then become accountable to the executive. It then also, calls to mind the idea of how our parliament works, because that is also part of the job of portfolio committees and who they hold accountable how. Again, on Monday, we've got yet another extra parliamentary, what is it called? Calling this one? Cyril Ramaphosa now has 26
Yes,
advisory councils, right? He's essentially, Cyril Ramaphosa has got a parallel government that is advising him, or his cabinet, or we don't know. Actually, we don't even know if he listens to them, because what is the advice that is coming out of all of those?
9 people appointed under, I think, Feroz Kachalia as the chairperson this week in a corruption commission, who are going to advise the president on how to tackle corruption. So more talk. I mean, this is very
We're up to 26 now. Now 26 advisory
right.
commissions that this president has had since 20.
Gareth, I think it's important also to acknowledge that work has also been done, or work has been happening to try and deal with those that have done wrong. So it does not suggest that nothing has been happening. And I think we need to acknowledge that work has been done. Now, it is important, and I need to emphasize this point to Mpumi, because she also needs to accept that this corruption is also driven by black professionals and white professionals in the civil service. The people that have gone to school, the people that have been trained properly, people who are not even members of any political party in the main, who have been driving the decisions, because the ANC, for example, in Johannesburg, we don't allow any of our councillors to sit in tender decisions. And that decisions, we took it long ago, that no councillor will sit there. But who sits in those decisions? It's administrators, it's professionals that have gone
this is
to
what
school
cadre
and been
deployment
trained.
has been about.
Now we
And
need
this
to
is what
address
cadre
that question
deployment
itself,
is about. It is
because
about
the
getting
public
people
service
who
itself
have
is
ties to the party.
important to the core.
Dada,
No. That's where you make a
believe that I
mistake.
need to
You need
accept,
to
while you may
analyze
believe that I
what
need
cadre
to accept
deployment
certain things,
means.
you need to,
No.
you need to
For
have
me,
a moment and
I'll
hear
tell you now.
this.
The city
What
manager,
we know for
the city
a
manager
fact.
in Johannesburg, it's cadre.
We can't
Explain what cadre deployment is. Cadre deployment. We only have a responsibility where I am responsible. Our responsibility is to appoint the city manager. The rest of the administrators is not our responsibility. And we did appoint a city manager in the name of Trevor Fowler to help us navigate building the city. Now, the rest of the professionals who are in the system, whether at SASA, whether in the city of Johannesburg, are not leaders or members of the ANC. They are professionals that we, as African people in particular, had hope and trust that they will help us build a country. We ourselves, it has nothing to do with data deployment. I mean, whom do we deploy and how many people do we deploy in the system? Honestly.
You tell us. Tell us.
I'm telling you, the regional executive committee only has a responsibility in as far as the deployment of a city manager, in as far as all his other direct reports and anyone else under him. It's not our responsibility. The same way that the traffic officers who take money on the streets are not deployed by the ANC. They're administrators who have been employed by the state. That is why I'm saying we need to understand that corruption exists, but somebody's enabling corruption to happen. So let's go there at the source.
Yep.
Does it?
Thanks.
Okay. So
Mpumelelo.
does it feel better? Sorry, Mpumelelo, before you go. So if it feels better for you to be able to say it is not our responsibility, even though what we see, we being the public, the civil, the people out here, what we see is we see a Brian Molefe with clear and strong ties to the ANC, ascending to a position, and when in that position, he makes decisions that benefit not just known ANC members or ministers or the party as a whole, actually. So if it makes you feel better to say that it is not our responsibility, which is what we have all been saying, is that the ANC is unable to take responsibility for the fact that it has broken the system by having people that are linked to the ANC, linked to ministers, being in charge of the public purse and diverting those funds. And no one is saying that that the public purse, that's what politicians do. They move funds, they allocate funds, but they allocate funds not for their benefit. They must allocate funds for the benefit of society. What we are seeing is we are seeing ANC comrades, ministers, all of those individuals, and even businessmen with strong links to the ANC, diverting funds from the public purse into their own pockets. So if it feels better for you to say that you are not responsible, it is okay. What we see and what we hear and what we experience is different.
Responsible.
You just said that.
I don't think I said we're not
It's okay. It's Mpumelelo's chance. It's Mpumelelo's chance to say
something. The attempt here was to explain to you your misunderstanding of what cadre deployment is.
It is not a misunderstanding. Mpumelelo, it is.
And when we started the debate, one of the important things Mpumelelo Mkhabela raised was the fact that I am responsible in Johannesburg. He wanted to understand that now that you are responsible as the chairperson of the region of Johannesburg, what are you going to do? And it is important that I don't know where I am responsible. This is what I'll attempt to do to try and contribute towards resolving the problem. And it will be incorrect to suggest that administrators are all deployed by the ANC. It's not true. Yes, there was a Brian Molefe at the level of Transnet CEOs. Those are deployed by the leadership of the ANC at the national level. Yes, we agree. But not everybody has been deployed by the ANC. Unless you are saying everything that is wrong in the country is the ANC. And we can't even try to say everything else that is wrong is done by the ANC and try to also overshadow everything else that is right. That I think also we need to talk about what is right and what has been done right and what has benefited society in the long run. We must also talk about that because we tend to speak only more about wrong. Sorry, I just wanted to.
No, that's fine. I do want to, because we've got limited time. I want Mpumelelo and Kanthan to just have some final thoughts here, and then we can wrap this up. So Mpumelelo, it's your turn.
Yeah, well, I think in theory, Dada is correct in theory, and that's what the rule book says, that the ANC doesn't get involved. Or politicians don't get involved in tenders and stuff like that. That's in theory. But in practice, it's a different story. And it's the same as when you look at the ANC resolutions and declarations. In theory and rhetoric, and it's there. But in practice, it's a different story. So if you look at, we spoke about what happened with Makugo, for example, the former MMC and the former mayor. He was able, for example, to influence the tender system, not because he sat in the procurement committee himself, but he found a way to influence the system. So you don't necessarily have to sit in the procurement committee to influence it. In the end, you are the one who's going to sign off the budgets. You are the one who's going to take a budget and present it to the council of the municipality for approval. So you are the one who know in advance what the budget is going to say, what are the priorities. You are the one as an MMC responsible for a particular portfolio who's going to appoint an HOD of that portfolio. So through that processes, the approval processes, the appointment processes, the ANC is able to influence things, and it must take responsibility where wrong has happened. And then it must also agree that it cannot say that, yeah, because the bureaucrats that's there, not all of them are appointed by us. Therefore, if something goes wrong, it's not just about the ANC only. No, wherever the ANC is the governing party, by the way, even if it's a whatever political party, wherever it is the governing party, it must take responsibility because, number one, it sets the moral tone for that sphere of influence where it is governing. There's a moral tone it must set by way of example, by way of what it does, by the way of what it says, number one. Number two, it sets the rules of governing within the framework of the Constitution. So all of these things ultimately influence what the bureaucrats do, what the bureaucrats don't do. And if you do things properly, not just in theory, like in practice, you will then make it difficult for the bureaucrats, whether they are appointed by the ANC or they are appointed by some other political party, or they are just professionals, as you say. You'll make it difficult for them to be corrupt because they will have nothing on you. But the moment they have something on the political head of a department or of a municipality, then you can't touch them. So the system becomes a question of one of the things I discuss in the book, political insurance. So I have stuff on you, you have stuff on me, so we can't reveal stuff about each other. So the system works as a mutual deterrent. The other form of political
small skeletons, huh?
Yes. So the moral tone that you can't run away from that. You need to set the moral tone, and then to make it difficult for your subordinates and for the bureaucrats to work around the rules or to game the system. So, but again, we spoke earlier. For that to happen, you need to remove the incentive for people to be corrupt.
On that note, and I'm going to give you the last word, Dada, because I do think it's, we don't want to pile on just because you're the first ANC representative to come on the show in a while. So I don't want you to feel like you're being cornered here. But Kanthan, before we wrap up, and a lot of people in the comments are taking sides on this already. There are people saying, just listen to what Dada's saying. There are people saying Pumi's interrupting. There are people saying Pumi's right. It's all over the place. What do you think the ANC should do? Let's imagine for a second that it is possible to go against everything that we've said for a long time now, that the ANC is not finished, that there is a way for them to resuscitate themselves, to regenerate that kind of moral tone that Mpumelelo's talking about there. Is there a way that you think that's possible? And is there any advice that you would give the ANC if you were employed to consult to them?
I think that within the ANC ranks right now, Gareth, there's a significant movement to actually pull the organization together. And I hinted at this in a piece that I wrote fairly recently, which was on Thabo Mbeki's birthday, where I suggested that there was possibly going to be a internal revolution against Cyril Ramaphosa to oust him, because frankly, he is the most useless president we've ever had. And I strongly believe that people who were very firmly in Thabo Mbeki's camp are working towards ousting Cyril Ramaphosa from his current position. And when Julius Malema says things like this, Julius very rarely lies about such things. He's generally very, very accurate. And frankly, I think that what needs to happen is that the ANC needs to split. And you need to have two ANCs. And effectively, the pair of them will end up running the country because they will command the majority. But all of their decision-making will have to be argued within Parliament. And I think that that is going to be the solution. The ANC cannot heal itself in its current form. We need COPE 2.0 to happen. And that's the point at which we'll get the country back. Let's leave it there.
Mcebisi Jonas is hearing you.
Yeah, well, let's hope that COPE 2.0. Let's hope COPE 2.0 isn't a fight like we saw Musiwa Lekota in over the course of yesterday, because otherwise that's going to be even more embarrassing. All right, Dada, you get the last word, and you're welcome to respond to Mpumelelo or Pumi or Kanthan or all three.
Thanks for the discussion. I think such dialogues would probably help us as leaders of the ANC individually, to help us to do the right thing and build our country and build our movement. And I think Mkhabela has really helped us in some of the issues that he raised, not only in the book, but a number of interviews that he has done. And where we are as Johannesburg, I think we could learn a lot from him to help us move forward. There are challenges in the ANC, there are challenges in the country, and I think we should continue to try and resolve some of the problems that are there, but we must also look into what good has happened in the country and where the country is doing and what different municipalities are doing and where are we going, especially where I think some of us have the responsibility. It might help for me that you also engage with what we're doing in Johannesburg and what we are doing in the city of Johannesburg as the leader of caucus. What changes are we putting in place?
I can't let you go without perhaps having a response from you on what Kanthan said there and what has been talked about a little bit. This idea that there is an internal revolution going on in the ANC, and I know you won't confirm or deny.
Well, I just heard it from him now, so I wouldn't want to comment.
Okay.
Remember, I'm the original chairperson, so I'm regulated by processes of the organization until that there's a declaration of the roadmap to the national conference. That's only at that point that one can speak freely, even of my own preferences of leadership at conference. So I don't know about the internal revolt, but of course, at that right time, we will declare our preferences or who should take us forward. Remember, Gareth, we should not run away from the fact that there are challenges in an organization. And I think an organization which is not faced with challenges as big as we are, then we'll have serious problems with that organization. It's the same thing of people who are just getting unqualified audits here and here, and nothing actually happens in the municipality. Because they're not spending money, they're not doing anything. But those that
Dada,
spend money,
your sound is might have deteriorated a little bit now, so I'm going to let you go on this. We are also at 8 o'clock. Thank you very much. I hope it's not the last time we have you on.
I'll definitely want to come back. Especially with Mpumi being here, I'll be glad. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dada Morero from the ANC in Johannesburg. He is the regional chairperson of the Johannesburg ANC. Mpumelelo, we didn't get to go into too much of the detail of your book, which I'm sorry about because there's so much more we could have unpacked from there, but we will get you back if you have some time for us one morning. We'd love to have you back. And Kanthan, you've really thrown a cat among the pigeons now with your new theory about an internal revolt. I can guarantee you Dada's going to run back to the ANC now and say, hey guys, what the hell? What's this? What's going on?
Go visit Jonas. Watch this space.
It looks like you also know something.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it. It's an open secret.
Let me just say the name of the person that's going to be brought forward. Pumzile Mlambo Nguka.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's something to think about. All right. So, guys.
Is that why she started a Twitter account?
Exactly. Yeah. Well spotted. Well spotted.
So we will reconvene on this matter because maybe there's some predictions that have been thrown into the offing here. Mpumelelo, thank you so much. Kanthan, always good to have you on. I know that you often do the school run, so you're not always able to join us, but people go crazy when you do. So hopefully we see you again soon. And we'll see where we'll test your predictions. So thank you to all the guests this morning. And if you want to read Mpumelelo's book, it is called The Enemy Within. And I would recommend that to anyone who wants to try and understand so much of what goes on in the ANC. There we go. Pumi's got it right up front and center in the screen there. So how the ANC lost the battle against corruption. Yeah, the wolf in sheep's clothing. All right. So thank you very much. And again, I've just got to say, great to have someone from the ANC on because, Pumi, we've tried, huh? We have tried. So to Dada's credit, despite the fact that
come back. We must talk about.
Sure.
We have to talk about what coalitions.
Yeah, well, we've got it, especially in Joburg. But I do want to say, and not to state the point too much because I don't want to bore people, but we always invite everybody, and sometimes we get replies, and sometimes we get favorable responses. But so far, Dada's been one of the first ANC people to come on the show for a long time. And I hope that other ANC members will feel that they are able to come and join us and put their case forward, because we need to know these are the people who control much of the country and so many municipalities in the country. And we need to speak to these people. We don't want them to be avoiding us. We want to deal with these things head on. So
we love Dada. He must come back.
Yeah, big pleasure to have him on. All right, thank you so much, everybody. We will see you tomorrow. Have an excellent day. Kanthan, Pumi, thank you so much. Cheers.